Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another week of breakdown and prediction. This week we got Dana White Contender Series Week 6 for 2024, and it's a decent card, actually. Like, a couple fighters on this card. I think the main event is a little weak, but outside of that, I'm intrigued by some of these matchups and excited to get this card broken down. But yeah, man, right before we get started with that, hit the like button on this video. Let's try to get as many likes as possible. Put some comments down below. I would really like to get some interaction on this video, hear what you guys think about these predictions, who you guys are picking, who's your most confident pick, all of that, because just curious to hear what your guys' opinions are. And besides that, man, there's no UFC this week, but there's still a lot going on. There's 2 Cage Warrior events, there's an Invicta event, there's a 1FC card, there's a Fury card. So a lot of stuff still going down, man. If you want access to that, patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru is where you get access to content for different promotions outside the UFC. And if I get a few comments, if I get three comments down below asking me to do a Cage Warriors prediction or Invicta FC prediction, I might put out a couple videos for those this week too. So if you want to see that, put it down in the comments. But besides that, man, let's get into it. Let's get in this first fight of the night. We got NATO. He's taking on Adan Guarder, and this fight to me, Ura, he's 28 years old. He's 6-0. He's actually the Pancrase middleweight champion, and he's been a first-round finisher. I mean, he's finished 5 of his 6 wins in the first round. Hasn't really been super active lately. He came back and fought June 30th of this year, but before that, we hadn't seen him since March of 2022, and NATO has been a pro since September 2020 and only has 6 fights in 4 years. So it's hard to find Pancrase fights, so a lot of what I saw from NATO are just clips, and he looks dynamic, he looks well-rounded, he has a wrestling background, he has some one-punch knockouts, and I've seen him take guys down with some well-timed shots and sub them out, so he looks well-rounded. On the feet, he carries his hands low but light on his feet. He moves his head well and kind of waits for fighters to open up so he can land sharp counters. Looks like he has some slick straight punches, a nice check hook, and I've seen him put guys out cold with one shot. His opponent, Guarder, is going to be coming forward wild, so NATO with the hands down against someone with that power and reach has to be on point and sharp, but it's also going to give him the opportunities to land the counters and put Guarder out, which is what he likes to do. But personally, I think going for takedowns and trying to exploit Guarder on bottom is probably the smartest game plan. Skill-wise, NATO looks skilled and a lot more skilled than Guarder, but he does look small, and the size, physicality, athleticism advantages are all on the side of Adan Guarder. So I don't really have a great read on NATO, though, because I basically just saw highlight reels, so I didn't get to see many bad moments from him or really how fights truly played out. But his opponent, 5-1 fighter, he's on a 4-fight knockout streak, Adan Guarder, and Guarder is not only knocked out all 4 of his opponents, but he took him out in the first round. And he's from Cameroon, but he's been fighting all over the world. His first fight was in Africa, but he's fought in Cameroon, Wales, England, Serbia, and now this is his first fight in the United States. He hasn't been fighting very good competition. This is a big step up. Most recently, he beat a 17-13-1 fighter, and that was his best win on paper by far. This fight's going to be Guarder's first fight against another prospect, so we'll see how he steps up or falls back in this situation. But Adan Guarder is a young African fighter, 6'3", with the 81-inch reach, and he's physically strong. In pretty much every fight I've seen, he puts the pressure on his opponent, starts to let his offense go, and fighters don't like what is coming at them, and they'll just shoot in on him. And he has good balance, he has good strength, and he's just overall athletic, but he can get taken down. He isn't that technical of a wrestler. On the feet, he is technical, though. He will utilize a nice wide stance. He stands upright and planted so he can slide in, slide out, and throw power. And nice 1-2s, 1-1-2s. He has some nice counter hooks and picks his shots well. He looks like a natural striker. In one fight I watched, he landed a really slick head kick and very composed, confident, and he just has that touch of death, so obviously that's going to give you some confidence. But his long reach and speed allow him to not really be the greatest defensively. In terms of head movement, He doesn't really move his head well. He pulls straight back, and I think he will be a handful for most on the feet, though, because he's just a very, very aggressive, dangerous guy with a good frame for the weight. And I do think maybe feints could open up Guarder and lead to you being able to land counters, and leg kicks could be effective on Guarder as well. But obviously, I assume the main tactic that fighters are going to take when they fight him is to try to extend the fight and turn up late and mix it up and use the wrestling. But Adan Guarder, he gassed hard in his split decision loss to Glenn Williams. Glenn Williams was not a good fighter and someone who Guarder never should have lost to either, but he almost knocked out Williams in the first round, couldn't get Williams out of there, and round 2 and round 3 were just very sloppy, low-volume rounds where Williams got the better of it. Williams even hit a couple takedowns, and Guarder normally isn't bad with his wrestling defense initially, but he just doesn't seem like he can chain wrestle well, and I've seen fights where Guarder defends takedowns and gets on top, and he does have good ground and pound, but he's just a subpar grappler. I've seen him lose position. I've seen him get his back taken or get put in these submissions that it's like someone that with a little more experience wouldn't have allowed themselves to get put in that bad position. But he's only 22 years old, so when he lost that fight, he was 19-20, and hopefully he learned from that, and he did win his pro debut via decision, so obviously that shows a little bit of development. But if you could take Guarder out of round 1, we don't really know what it's going to look like in a tough fight for him. But this fight, like I said, I don't really have a good read on it, and really not that interested in it from a betting perspective. Prediction-wise, I'm going to predict that uran NATO wins in round 1 or round 2 via sub or ground and pound finish. I just feel like he's a little bit more skilled, but if the athleticism gap is too much for him to overcome, I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever there. But the next fight that we have, Talis and Toera taking on Arthur Lopez. And Talis and Toera is a scary fighter. I mean, the guy's 6'8". He's won all his MMA fights in round 1. And so far, he's kind of slow-rolled his career. He's faced mostly low-level opposition. But he's only 24 years old. He has a good camp behind him. So I expect he's ready for this step up. And he's fought for the LFA. So he's been fighting for a good promotion. And this is his first fight in the United States, though. And his opponent, Arthur Lopez, fellow Brazilian fighter. He's 6-1. He's won 5 fights in a row and hasn't lost since 2015. Obviously, having said that, it means that he's only fought 5 times since 2015. And he returned in March 30th, 2024, won in 20 seconds. And before that, he hadn't fought since 2018. So in the last 6 years, we've only seen 20 seconds of action from Arthur Lopez. And Lopez has had all his fights on obscure regional promotions in Brazil. None of Lopez's fights have gotten out of the first round, and he has 5 first-round knockout wins. He got kicked in the head while he was on top with an up kick and won a fight via DQ because he was obviously not standing. And then he had a first-round submission loss as well. But most of Lopez's opponents have had no fights before he faced them, and the best fighter that he's beaten is only 7-6. So it kind of looked like Lopez quit training, got out of shape, and came back earlier this year, put in a lot of work to get in better condition, and then won a belt versus a nobody on the regional scene. Looked like he was in good shape for that fight, and I don't know how he got this opportunity here, but we will see if he can capitalize. And Arthur Lopez in his last fight had a super easy night. I mean, he didn't even get hit once. His opponent tried to explode in a range, hands down, and Lopez just caught him with a lead right hook, dropped him, and ended the fight right after with ground and pound. I did see he's a southpaw. I mean, his other fights look like they were recorded in like 1950, but he does look athletic, fast. He's explosive. His stand-up looks aggressive. He has fast hands. And his ground and pound looked pretty good. I really have no idea of his grappling level, but I do think he has impressive hand speed. He's kind of dangerous. So we'll see if he can kind of create some chaos in this matchup. But Talis and Toera, he is a tall fighter, obviously, at 6'8", and he fights tall. He has a great jab. He uses his straight punches to maintain distance well. He'll throw some nice stinging sharp shots, kind of just flicks them out there. And he does pull back with his chin in the air at times, but normally he does a good job kind of getting his shoulder in the way, and just his height is tough to deal with. He'll throw hard round kicks to the body, to the head as well, and he's always ready to return with punches after you throw, so fighters can get kind of lulled into a defensive shell after they get countered a few times. But Teixeira also isn't someone who's a lumbering or slow heavyweight. He, unlike most people, his height can move well, and he stays composed in the pocket. He exchanges shots effectively. He looks like he has good experience there. And cardio for Teixeira is unknown due to never seeing him get past round 1. But he has an inverted triangle armbar win. With his length, you'd think that his guard could be kind of difficult, but I've actually never personally seen him on the ground. And I think Teixeira is the rightful favorite here, but no way anyone could have huge confidence. I mean, Lopez does look dangerous. It is heavyweight. I'm going to say round 1, round 2 knockout win for Talis and Teixeira, just based off him being more active, fighting more real fights and legit promotions. But for both these guys, it's kind of their first real dangerous opponent that they're having to face. And, you know, we'll see what happens. But Teixeira's way bigger. He's been a lot more active, like you said. And he's probably going to get the job done here. So Teixeira for me, and I think he's going to win it inside the distance within the first 2 rounds. And the next fight, we got Benjamin Bennett taking on Joey Hart. This is a pretty high-level matchup here. Benjamin Bennett, super experienced fighter with a really good resume. He is 6-1 as a pro, and he has a few good victories as a professional, but he was an IMAF world champion as an amateur. He went 18-4 in 22 amateur bouts, and he fought some well-known fighters as an amateur. He fought Brendan Allen. He fought William Starks. He fought Alex Martinez, Darian Weeks, Isa Isakov. He fought Axel Sola. And he's been fighting for over 10 years, so he's experienced, and he should be ready for this step up. His opponent, Joey Hart, the Hitman, he's 6-1. He's fighting out of Start BJJ in Minnesota, which is a fairly known gym. Not the greatest gym, but a good gym. And he's a knockout artist. He's knocked out every opponent he's defeated. And he's fought a couple better opponents recently. He's looked good, so he's earned this position. But Benjamin Bennett definitely has a better resume. When you look at style-wise, Benjamin Bennett is a boxer-wrestler. Good movement. He could stance switch. Likes to back you up and cage wrestle. And his experience is vast, so he has good fight IQ. He fights good game plans. He moves in and out of range and then shoots singles, and he'll cage push fighters, grind them out. And although it's kind of boring, it's effective. And on the feet, he actually does have pretty slick boxing. Good head movement, nice check hook. And he fought a similar style fighter to Joey Hart and Trey Waters. And he was winning almost the entirety of that fight. And in round 3, level changed into a knee, got knocked out, and ended up losing, and that's his one professional loss. So the one loss that he did have, he was looking good and just got caught. And obviously that is a danger factor here against another really tall, long, lanky fighter. But I think that Bennett is a good fighter with a lot of experience, and he has a clear path to victory in this fight with the wrestling. Joey Hart, he's dangerous but kind of flawed. Obviously, he has a unique frame for the weight class, being so tall and lengthy. He's athletic. He's dangerous in all ranges. At distance, he uses a nice jab. He can use his kicks pretty effectively. But he can be a little stationary. He doesn't have good head movement. He did get dropped in his last fight. And in brawling range, he is a little bit vulnerable. He is calm. He can land nice counters. But just that head movement kind of befalls him a little bit at times. And in the clinch, I think Hart has his best offense there. He brings some heavy knees. He has good elbows. He isn't the best defensively, so a fighter with good footwork, good counter ability, ability to feint level changes, come over the top, I think could knock Hart out or at least hurt him and dominate him. He is durable, though. He recovers fast, and obviously his power is evident. He has all 6 of his wins via knockout. And Joey Hart, he was dominated on the mat in his one pro loss. I wouldn't say he's a terrible grappler or scrambler, but fighters with good top control that can transition well can hold him down and work him over. And Joey Hart is a fighter who is an opportunistic finisher. He can be getting held down and dominated, roughed up, and then explode, reverse position, be dangerous and finish on top, or obviously at the start of every round, fights start back on the feet, and he has the ability to finish there. But in his fight with Dr. Karayev, which is his loss, he got worked the whole fight and just was the inferior grappler. He did show good cardio. He's beaten a couple other fighters that were wrestlers. He has gotten some third-round finishes. But I think ultimately he will struggle with fighters that can cut the cage off, pressure him, time shots well. But overall, Hart does have a lot of potential. But I think he's a little bit green, raw as a prospect. And Hart is a dangerous fighter, but I just think Benjamin Bennett is better. I think that Bennett's wrestling is way better. And although he might not be an elite wrestler in terms of getting the fight to the ground, he can cage push well. And I think he'll be able to control Hart, excuse me. Bennett will pressure with his stance-switching footwork and boxing and then time that single and kind of just grind fighters out. And Hart is really going to struggle with that, in my opinion. I don't see him being able to get Bennett off of him when he gets a hold of him. And I think Hart's going to have to rely on a big moment like Trey Waters did, timing a knee, cutting Bennett with an elbow, maybe landing a big 1-2 and snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. But I think outside of that, Bennett will very likely take this win via decision. And continuing through the card, we got Aaron Tao taking on Elijah Smith. And Aaron Tao is looking to continue the success of Australian New Zealand fighters that we've seen this Contender Series season. We just saw last week his teammate, Navajo Sterling, earn a contract. And Tao is a city kickboxing fighter. Most city kickboxing fighters we have seen get to the UFC have been bigger guys in the heavier weight classes. So Tao is a bantamweight. Haven't seen too many bantamweights, but he brings a good resume with him to the show. He's fought almost exclusively for XFC, which I believe is probably the best promotion in New Zealand. I know that there's Eternal in Australia and all that, but in New Zealand, I think XFC is probably the best promotion. And he won the amateur bantamweight title for XFC. Then he also won the featherweight belt for them. He was an amateur champion for XFC, so he's gotten a lot of gold. And he defended his bantamweight title 3 times. So 5 of his 8 fights have been title fights as a pro. But this is going to be a different test, though, because even though he was collecting hardware, it looks good to be in these title fights. He was fighting guys that didn't have good records, so the large majority of his opponents have had losing records, and this fight, he's facing a 6-1 opponent. He's having to travel to fight, and it's going to be a lot tougher situation. But one thing we know is he has a team with UFC championship experience. He has the guidance, and it's on him to go out there and perform. But his opponent, Elijah Smith, he's a fighter who's already made a name for himself before even joining the UFC. He's dynamic. He's had some really nice finishes. And he has some UFC lineage. His father, Gilbert Smith, is a 2-time Ultimate Fighter veteran. Gilbert Smith actually never won a UFC fight. He competed once on an Ultimate Fighter finale card way back in the day in a losing effort. So Elijah Smith will be trying to check that off the family bucket list, get a UFC win if he can win on Tuesday and get that contract. And Elijah Smith has definitely fought the much better opposition. He has beaten good fighters. He won a belt in a regional promotion. And he's taking this fight on short notice. He also had a fight scheduled in November. So I don't know how good a shape he's going to be in about 2-3 weeks' notice. But hopefully he could put his best foot forward. Style-wise, when you're looking at both these guys, Aaron Tao, he looks very physically strong. And he's a violent, vicious fighter. He doesn't really press the wrestling heavily, but when he does try to get fighters down, he'll throw them around in the clinch. He can get big double leg slams, kind of tricky clinch trips, and he just looks strong. And if he can get on top, his ground and pound is nasty. He goes for the kill. On the feet, I feel like he's powerful with big swinging punches. He'll throw high kicks, but he's not a great striker. He carries his lead hand low. He's really heavy on that lead leg, and he's good at sliding out of range when he has to take pressure or avoid shots, and his lateral footwork is not bad. But I think an explosive fighter like Elijah Smith who can close that gap quickly could maybe take Tao out. But Tao's a fighter with a big upper body, big neck. He looks really solid, so I think he's going to be durable. But he is fighting an ultra-explosive, powerful guy, so Tao needs to respect that. Tao is an intense wild man, and he's going to fight hard, I think, unless you knock him out. And it's kind of difficult for me, though, to see exactly how good Tao is, just because he's been fighting really low-level opponents. So, this fight, I think we're going to learn a lot more about him. But Elijah Smith, he's an entertaining fighter. He, on the feet, is super fast. He's a long reach, and he's pretty solid with his footwork. He's at his best when he can lead the dance. He can pressure forward, use that athleticism. He has a good jab, nice 1-2s, fast hand speed in general. And if he gets in a brawl in the pocket, normally he's going to get the better of that. Smith, when he can back fighters up and unload, that's where he can get them out quickly. His last fight, he jumped on Josh Walker and knocked him out inside the first round. He's had a couple fights where he's knocked guys out in under 20 seconds and a couple other ones where he's knocked them out in under a minute. And he will allow fighters to pressure him, though, and kind of secedes the center. He will look to stay coiled, time counters off the back foot. He'll try to time the double leg. And he is heavy on his lead leg, so leg kicks are there to land on him. And I think going to the body versus Smith is a smart game plan also because he has fast reflexes. He could pull back and evade well, but the body is there to get touched. And Smith got his leg chewed up versus Reyes Cortez. And when he got a little tired, less reflexive, he got clipped and knocked out. So I do kind of question Smith's chin a little bit after seeing that. But Smith has won 4 of his 6 fights via knockout. And he's going to be looking to detonate on Aaron Tao Tuesday. But Smith is a good wrestler. He wasn't an awesome amateur wrestler, but he wrestled in Colorado in high school, and his father was a great wrestler, and he relies more on timing. Doesn't push the takedowns heavy, but he will time the double, and he has a fast shot. He, on top, has good ground and pound if he feels comfortable posturing, but a lot of the time he will just kind of grind it out and keep the position. You saw that in his fight with Robert Trujillo. Cardio for Elijah Smith is a little bit of a question mark. He's young. He's 22 years old. He trains in Colorado at elevation, so his gas tank isn't bad, but he's a fighter who relies heavily on athleticism, and he can go 3 rounds when he can mix it up, get takedowns, rest on top. But if you can pressure him, provide wrestling resistance, I do think Smith could slow down a little bit. He just doesn't have a lot of experience in longer fights yet. And I feel like Smith is really taking the fast path with his career, which hopefully works out. He has a ton of potential, but he was fighting Reyes Cortez at just 20 years old with a 2-0 record. And now he's won 4 fights in a row, but he stepped up on short notice to take on a tough Contender Series fight at just 22 years old. So hopefully for Smith backers, he proves he's an anomaly for his age and gets a contract, but if he loses, he needs to maybe start thinking about being smarter in terms of what fights to take, because I do feel as if he has potential and could be good, and he doesn't want to kind of derail his career early. But this fight's kind of difficult for me to read because, like I said, the low-level opponents of Aaron Tao make it a little difficult for me to know how good he actually is. Theoretically, I mean, he should have plenty of training partners to work with that are mobile, throw long, straight punches, low kicks. And if you can use his slip and rip game and take the leg kicks away somehow, maybe you can walk Smith down, use his own leg kicks and power punches to wear on Smith. If you can do that, maybe he can finish late or win a decision. But Tao has his hands way too low for me, though. I think he's very heavy on that lead leg. And I kind of think this fight may turn into a calf kick contest. Whoever can get on the calf kick faster may wind up winning. For Tao, the game plan to me is going to be to try to pressure hard, throw a lot of leg kicks, and try to make Smith pay for throwing counters or takedowns. I think that although Tao was a good wrestler for New Zealand, I don't think he's going to be able to take down Elijah Smith. So I do think if Tao can get top position, he will be dangerous. But for Smith, if he can go forward, I think he should try to pressure Tao back, stay at range, use that length. And if he can control distance and not overextend, I think he can use his speed and do well, defend the takedowns. And Smith needs to realize that Tao is an intense, sturdy fighter, though, who likes to get hit. I mean, the guy looks crazy. So just flow. I mean, don't try to look for the knockout. And, I think Smith could maybe even hit a couple of double legs. I don't know if he wants to grapple with Tao too much, but I do think that they could, be there for him. And I'm going to predict Elijah Smith wins via decision in a fairly competitive fight. I think Smith will dominate early, maybe even hurt Tao a couple times, fail to finish, and maybe Tao will work his way back into the fight. But I think Smith's speed and just having, in my opinion, fought way better fighters will lead to him finding a way to win. And I'm going to go with Elijah Smith via decision. I think losing that decision to Reyes Cortez will have taught him a little bit of something, and I think he's going to go in there and right that wrong and get this Contender Series win on short notice. But finally, we got the main event of this Contender Series card. Two guys that we've seen on the show already, Dylan Mantello and Ahmad Hassazanda. And Dylan Mantello, he was on the Contender Series last year, and it didn't go his way. It ended in bad fashion. He didn't really get to show much of anything. He got taken down and submitted in less than 3 minutes. He returned earlier this year in February and won with a flying knee over a veteran. So we'll see how much he's improved since that last experience he had on the show. He is 31 years old, so the pressure is on him. It's probably his final opportunity to get into the UFC. His opponent is a Team Alpha Male fighter, Ahmed Hassazanda, and he fought on Contender Series in 2022 and was pretty much dominated. He got beat down, showed toughness, but ultimately got stopped in round 3. Since that loss, Hassazanda has gone 2-1. He lost his fight right after the Contender Series loss, but won 2 fights in a row since then. He knee-barred a pretty good wrestler on Cage Warriors, then knocked out a Georgian fighter in March. He didn't miss weight in his last fight, so he made weight this time. That was good to see. And, yeah, man, but style-wise, Dylan Mantello, he is a tall lightweight with a good frame. He trains out in New York with Longo and Weidman, so he has the momentum of Rob just winning the belt. And style-wise, he's a tall, long fighter. Height and reach-wise, they're pretty much the same, him and his opponent. So we're going to see who can just better that because both fighters are used to being the longer guy in there most of the time. But Mantello likes to pressure, use his jab. He's diligent with the body attack. He likes to use the jab, then throw the 2 to the body. He has good hooks. He'll throw good leg kicks, front kicks. He's aggressive. He marches you down. He pushes the pace. Defensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. He's very hittable. He's just a slow guy, and he's been dropped and almost knocked out in multiple fights. He is in good shape, so he recovers fast, but obviously his chin is a little suspect. He does have decent offense and okay head movement. It seems like he gets a little bit better as the fight goes on, but he carries his hands low, and he's just not athletic enough for the defensive style that he wants to try to use. He also has average power. I don't see him as a big puncher. If he finishes with strikes, it's going to be a kick or a knee. And he's never been stopped before, though, so he is, very tough, at least at this point in his career. But Mantello, he's a decent anti-grappler. He doesn't have very good wrestling, but he could stuff some takedowns. And if they do take him down, though, he will try to attack with a guillotine. His guard is pretty good defensively. He's not really that dangerous. But we did see him kind of mitigate damage in the last 3 rounds versus Archie Colgan. Kenan Khrushchevsky kind of hurt him on the feet. And then when he took him down, he passed his guard, took his back, and choked him pretty quick. So Hassazanda is dangerous on the ground. I don't know if Mantello wants to be on his back versus him. So he needs to try to keep it standing. But cardio-wise, Mantello has good cardio. He can weaponize that. And you look at his opponent, Hassazanda is an aggressive fighter on the feet. He's tall. He has long arms. He'll pressure forward with the high guard, get in the pocket, and kind of just exchange. He throws nice 1-2s, 1-2-3 combinations. He has decent hand speed, kind of can sting fighters. Even though he isn't super powerful, he does have dangerous front kicks to the head. He'll throw some leg kicks. Defensively, he does hold his hands low, has no head movement, and just kind of walks face first into punches. But fighters with power tend to really give him problems. He has been dropped multiple times in multiple fights. But Hassanzada has an iron will, so unless you knock him out cold, he's going to continue to press, and that can overwhelm guys. He can take you out down the stretch. But he has okay offense. He's aggressive, but doesn't have a good chin and just not the best striker to me. But he is a good grappler, Hassanzada. He's not the best wrestler, but he did get a few takedowns his last fight. It looks like he's getting better with his wrestling. And if you get him down, he is dangerous with his guard. And on top, he's really good. He has good ground and pound. He likes to mount. He likes to take the back. He's got several finishes on the ground. So for Hassanzada, I think the best area he has is when he can get in top position. But this fight's a bit of a mirror match. I mean, both fighters are similar size, use similar offense on the feet. Both are hittable and chinny, but they're tough, come in great shape, so they recover fast. I think Hassanzada is faster, and in the pocket, he may be a little bit more dangerous. But either guy can go down in that scenario, and I think Mantello is a little more technical, so as the fight goes on, he's going to be a little better when both guys get a little more fatigued. As far as wrestling grappling goes, I'll say Hassanzada has a slight advantage there. But I don't know if he's going to be able to hit takedowns. I feel like he's not going to be able to get it to the ground, so it's probably going to be a stand-up fight. I personally don't really think either of these fighters are very good, and this shouldn't be the main event, but it's going to be a fun fight to watch, most likely. And I'm going to slightly edge it to the underdog, Dylan Mantello. I think he can maybe get the better of the stand-up as the fight goes later. Slightly better offense and durability by a slim margin. And I have very little confidence in this pick. I do feel like it's pretty much 50-50. But I'm going to predict that Dylan Mantello gets the decision win in the main event of the Contender Series. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this episode that I did on the channel here. And as far as my play of the week this week, I'll give you guys a play of Benjamin Bennett. He is a slight plus money or a pick of money across the board on books, and I think he should be around a minus 175, minus 200 favorite. So Benjamin Bennett would be the play that I give you guys this week. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back soon breaking down more fights for y'all, so stay locked into the channel, and appreciate everyone that watches the show.